Hello, hello, and welcome. It looks like I'm going to be dark in this video. Some technical issues here with the home working and a lack of the proper space. But hey ho, let me see if it's going to be any better this way. Is it going to be in? Okay, it is what it is. It is what it is. Doesn't matter. So hello and welcome. I wanted to do a video on the upcoming International Women's Day. I figured that it's going to be easier to do it live instead of recording, because if I'm going to be recording, I'm going to be self-censoring myself, and I will never probably do it, and then I would have to edit it, and it wouldn't just happen. So in the spirit of done is better than how is it? Done is better than perfect, or what have you. I'm just going to go ahead with the topic. So 8th of March is the International Women's Day. And as I was searching for some information or inspiration for the day, I realized that there are quite a few YouTube channels or videos that have the comments turned off under the videos on International Women's Day or inclusion. For example, interestingly, the International Women's Day channel has it has the comments turned off. There's as well, for example, a channel, I think it's We Are Netflix, that Netflix employees post their own videos, and that includes topics on inclusion and women's, and they are also, those videos have also comments turned off. And it really made me think about, why is it so difficult to talk about topics that personally I'm very passionate about, and I see it as a positive thing. But even though on this channel I have so few views, even I had the comments on being feminist and that being a bad thing and being a little bit attacked, shall I say, or people getting defensive. So it is creating lots of polarization and challenges. And I thought about how can we, and I actually want to appreciate that for some people, the International Women's Day can be difficult, or can create that feeling of a cringe or anxiety, either for men or women. And for me as well. And for example, I was in a conference on women in tech a couple of years ago, and I remember that some female speakers from the stage were saying, in the spirit of, yeah, we have it's women's time, guys can be kind of put into the second position because they had the time, now it's our time, we can do it. And there was something in me saying, that's not right, that's not how we can make a difference, and this is not how we can help get our message across. That's my perspective. All I'm going to be doing here, it's giving my perspective. So what's the alternative, and how can we do it? And so when I thought about the comments that were being turned off, I thought, what about the comments were on the videos that they are not turned off? And on those videos, when we do have comments on International Women's Day, for example, there's lots of polarization. It's very black and white, everything in there. There's a little bit of a war going on, and there's a lot of defensiveness, and some voices are something around the spirit of, if we are talking about women, we're forgetting about men, but men work hard. What do we want? It's not fair. How do you want to talk about equality if men are being forgotten in that conversation, or the challenges of women are being undermined or dismissed? And so we will get that polarization. Speaking on polarization, I guess we are familiar with the Social Dilemma movie on Netflix that shows us how what the role social media have in today's world in impacting the people's thinking and belief system. But at the same time, I don't know if the movie talks about it directly, but also the sense of the community. And And on that note, I think it's worth pausing for a second to think about what message we are sending and how diverse our thinking is. Matthew Said, for example, in this book, Rebel Ideas, has a chapter on the echo chambers, and he quotes legal scholar Cass Sustain, who argued in a highly influential essay. I'm going to just read it out. Although millions of people are using the internet to expand their horizons, many people are doing the opposite, creating a daily me that is specifically tailored to their own interests and prejudices. It is important to realize that a well functioning democracy, a republic, depends not just on freedom from censorship, but also on unsolved, unanticipated, and even unwanted exposure to diverse topics, people, and ideas. A system of gated communities is an unhealthy for cyberspace as it is for the real world. So I can just imagine that the feeds on the 8th of March are going to be flooded with lots of different topics, and depending on what your views are, what your beliefs are, you're going to be fed as well as some memes or some content regarding women's position in the workplace as well. And I thought, okay, so following that thought, maybe I should expose myself more to those opposite views and read those comments, for example. And now a very individualistic perspective and egoistic, selfish perspective I have is when I read them and knowing my experiences. So for example, I myself was in a men-dominated environment, industries. On top of that, I have what's called intersectionality. So I'm not only a woman, but also I'm an Eastern European. I'm a mom. I've got ADHD. So there are a lot more things going on for me. But at the same time, I appreciate that my race works for me. So, but I have had those experiences of, for example, my voice not being listened to unless it had my MACE manager approval, and that was all that was needed. So I went through some of the struggles, and that was my experience. And when I read some of those comments, I sometimes feel like, okay, so does it mean that because it makes someone feels injustice, unfair, I now have to kind of give up my own day where I can speak about what we're going through in hoping to make a change, so somebody else feels good. I mean, I could go that way, but a reflection comes in, and there's a poem by a Polish writer, Wisława Szymborska. She won a Nobel Prize for Literature, and before Olga Tokarczuk. And Wisława Szymborska written in one of the poems that I remember from my elementary school or high school. I don't remember when I read it, but from school. It said, tyle wiemy o sobie, ile nas sprawdzono, which means, my translation, we know about ourselves as much as we were exposed to. So, in other words, I know how I feel about it because I've been through it. I know what it is because I've been exposed to it. It's hard sometimes to expect that other would know it if they haven't been through it. And on top of that, the research tells us that even women are gender bias blind. So not all of the females realize the challenges themselves because they are so accustomed to certain situations or biases themselves. So it's hard really to put the whole responsibility on the other side and say, you should know it because I went through it. So this is where I guess some kind of empathy, a perspective taking comes in. And I think if you want to be successful in building the bridge rather than making the gap bigger, because I think that's the risk we are at, to make the gap and not build the bridge, which I don't think is to anyone's favor, then we have to take the perspective taking as well ourselves. And that brings me to some examples. So I was always very interested in how people believe. For example, I'm fascinated by flat earthers, for example, those who believe that the earth is flat, or other belief systems that in the let's put some logic in the science we have. It's it's there are enough evidence to prove otherwise. But there's another. By the way, I'm going to be making Netflix publications about advertisement. But there was or there is or there was definitely there was documentary of on flat earthers as well, and I like that they said what they need is a community of people who will understand them and they will be accepted in, and that's probably what's sometimes is missing. But anyway, I'm making digressions. There is a journalist, Louis. I can't say his last name, but that's Louis Term. I've written somewhere. Louis Theroux. Theroux. I love his journalist style. I think he's a little bit like sociologist and doing what's called a participant observer. He mingles with people, with the communities, and observes them. One of those was Westboro church family, which was called the whole documentary was called "The Most Hated Family in the USA." Um, that talk about the belief systems and the behaviors that from the inclusion point of view were highly offensive to me and was hard to watch. But it was fascinating how he was trying to be with the family, try to, I wouldn't say understand. He's quite clear that it's not about understanding to become on their part, but he came with the curiosity. And one of his powerful things and the craft is the way he asks questions. And I think the asking questions can be a very powerful thing, and having the curiosity. And it has a follow up because one of those members has left, Megan Phelps-Roper. She has left the church years after, and she did a TED talk that I highly recommend, where she talks about why she left the church. And interestingly enough, it was thanks to the social media. It was thanks to the Twitter. And she said that the best thing that people did for her were that they were engaging in a conversation, non-judgmental conversation, that they were getting curious and that they were asking her those powerful questions that help her think things through and give her a perspective. Any offensive comments, any direct comments, you're wrong, were just ignored. And I think her takeaways were that if we want to engage in those kind of belief system conversations, and that's beyond the church, it is a good example, but it's not about religion only. It's first, don't assume bad intention. So for me, if I'm giving myself advice into how I'm going to go through the 8th of March without being triggered too much, is assume good intention from those who are writing the comments that I'm not necessarily so, let's say, happy with. Second, ask questions. That's so powerful. Asking questions. I probably should do a separate video on that, and in how many ways it can help us. Number 3, stay calm. So it's not about, like, that resonates with me, especially with that rhetoric of we had our time. We didn't have our time, now it's our time, and it's being a little bit aggressive. I think there is a place for it. By all means, I'm going to make a digression, but with everything that's happening in my home country, in Poland, I understand why the language is the way it is. At the same time, it just gives people arguments that are not valid arguments to counter discuss. But that's one thing. So staying calm can really help to go through to the people. And I would say be patient, because that's not going to happen overnight, I guess. And then she says, make your argument. One of the conversations I got involved with when I was called a feminist in a negative way, actually, I don't know if that worked very well, but I did start asking questions, and they said, how about next time you're in a meeting, you have a look into who's being listened to. Is it easy for men or women to make a point and the idea to be taken on? How does it work? I think I think if you become that observant rather than taking my word for it, just observe what's happening around you, and if there is in fact something worth discussing or looking at. It did kind of help. At least I didn't get more negativity from it. So I guess that's a success in a way. So these were her 4 points to consider. Uh, and this also resonates, I've quoted Rebel Ideas, Matthew Said, in his chapter on echo chambers. He talked about Derek Black, who was a son of the white supremacist in the America, who was actually a godson of the, how is it called, Great Wizard of Ku Klux Klan. So he was raised essentially to be a racist, and everything about the purpose of life was about being a racist or being the white supremacist. But when he went to the college, his friend, now friend Matthew Stevenson, with his non-judgmental, with him asking questions, with him accepting him into his community, and making the point, ask him those questions that made him think and make the argument in a constructive way, actually completely change Derek Black's views on the world. Completely. In one point in the book, Matthew says, people are capable of change if you gain the trust. People start to listen to what you're saying when there is a real relationship, rather than just rejecting what you say out of hand. So it's important that we create a language and a platform that builds those bridges and doesn't alienate us. I guess I am an understanding person, and I understand why sometimes we are getting, like, it's hard when I put it this way, it's sometimes really hard to get through to explain people my challenges if they don't go through them, or many of them are like on the single way, they are on the single instance, they are very minor. Is, your idea wasn't taken into account. Maybe it was a bad idea. But if it happens many times and somebody else gives the same idea or similar and is accepted, all you need is May's blessing. And you are going through it and you start seeing more and more and more. It gets a little bit frustrated when you feel that you're not being listened to. But I appreciate that this is my experience, and it's easy for me to know how it is because I'm going through it. As to Wisława Szymborska sentiment, I guess that's how I took it. We know about ourselves as much as we're tested against. So I don't know how I would behave if I was a man and I would be listening about women and knowing, and I know it because I've worked with some great men, many fantastic men. I worked in a men dominated environment, and I felt very, very welcomed in many ways. So I don't want to say I'm a victim and it was all bad. By all means, no. I know there is a lots of good intention, but perhaps not enough curiosity. Not enough not enough curiosity, because the good intention kind of I truly believe that most of them want to help, want to be supportive, and even don't see the problem because they like us, what have you. But I think a little bit of more curiosity, asking questions, and being open-minded would help everyone. And it's not against the men. There's this TED talk in the book, Why Do So Many Incompetent Men Become Leaders, that shows, in like one of the takes I took on that book and TED talk, which it just, summarizes the book, is that it's about the environment we create, it's about the skills we value, and it's about what we are about culturally, and what kind of leaders we want to have. So talking about women in the workplaces will benefit men and women, because we're gonna review the paradigm we have into what we think the good leadership looks like, what we're expecting from people, how we collaborate, how we evaluate ourselves, and what strengths are important. I think that just enriches our working life with benefit to our everyone if we just break a little bit the paradigm that it's just not fit for today's world. So, um, to summarize it, this is how I say it. The Women's Day, if you are a woman and you feel a little bit anxious because you don't want to feel like you're being positioned as a victim, uh, or you yourself don't think that this is an issue, or you think there's too much attention, we still need to talk about it because the data are overwhelming. And the best book to quote would be Invisible Women, that just shows the extent of how much work we still have to do. So, and if you're a man that feels the whole discussion is pointless because everyone just we go meritocracy, but um, everyone has good intentions. Women are not being discriminated. What's the fuss about? For both of us, I would say, let's if we're going to have this feat of International Women's Day, read it, listen to it with open mind, assume good intention, ask questions, and listen to it with curiosity, because we all can learn from it. What's the point? How can we improve our our workplaces, and be more empathetic towards each others? I hope that has been helpful, and that there is no reading in between the lines. I have good intention, and I just really believe and I'm passionate about the topic of diversity and inclusion. Dare I say, for all. I'm thinking about it because some of the comments were like, why we all have to work for it. But anyway, I'm not going there. Happy Women's Day. Let us be happy with it and celebrate being grateful to all great men and women, great role models, both females and males, everyone who wants to stay curious, learn and grow and challenge our own thinking and be exposed to diverse thinking. Take care. Thank you for listening. Bye bye.